Welcome to 7:30. I'm Chris Ullman. The Labor leadership ballot is set for Monday. After months of damaging destabilisation, Julia Gillard has thrown down the gauntlet to the man she deposed, Kevin Rudd. The Prime Minister is confident she has enough support to crush her rival and ensure he does not rise a third time. He's on a plane home to Australia. The campaign is off and running and long-held grudges are filling the airwaves. Political editor Heather Hewitt reports.
The gloves are finally off, and even though Kevin Rudd is yet to officially declare himself a leadership candidate, the sales pitches have begun.
I have formed this view that we need a leadership ballot in order to settle this question once and for all.
Overnight, I've had many conversations with caucus colleagues and with ministerial colleagues. I'm very pleased by and encouraged by the amount of positive support and encouragement of me to contest the leadership of the Australian Labor Party.
If, against my expectation, I do not receive the support of my colleagues, then I will go to the backbench and I will renounce any further ambition for the Labor leadership. This would be in the best interests of the government and the nation. I anticipate that Mr Rudd will also be a candidate in this ballot. I ask him to give the same undertaking.
They regard me as the best prospect to lead the Australian Labor Party successfully to the next elections, to save the Australian Labor Party at those elections, and to save the country from the ravages of an Abbott government.
I want to be clear about this too. I believe that we can win the next election and defeat Tony Abbott. I believe I can lead Labor to that victory, provided that the Labor Party unites and we get on with the job.
The future government of Australia is not about the power of factions, it's about people's power. And the people of Australia have a view on the future leadership of their country. I would urge each and every one of them to make that view known across the country. Pick up the phone, talk to MPs, talk to your media outlets, express your view. Ours is a democracy, in the open spaces, not behind closed doors and not governed by faceless men. Another question, yeah.
Since so-called faceless men have been running a leadership campaign for Kevin Rudd for months, and just about everyone in Parliament House knows it, that line was raising more than a few eyebrows today.
All the best, folks. Bye.
And at this point, Kevin Rudd's call for people power looks about the only chance he has of getting anywhere near close to winning a leadership ballot. The majority of his caucus colleagues remain firmly behind the Prime Minister. So the people power theme has been taken up by Kevin Rudd's wife as well.
What ordinary people tell me is that they trust Kevin and they respect him. They know how hard he worked after 2007 election and in the lead up to that. And I think it's useful for people to tell their local MP, if that's a Labor MP, and to tell their local Labor senator, look, this is what I want.
This is now open warfare, and it's not a pretty sight. What's clear is that Julia Gillard and many of her ministers now feel liberated to tell it how they see it. Their story of life under Kevin Rudd as Prime Minister and why they got rid of him.
Kevin Rudd as Prime Minister always had very difficult and very chaotic work patterns. In my view, Kevin Rudd is an excellent campaigner and he was an excellent campaigner in 2007. But government requires different skills. Government requires consistency, purpose, method, discipline, inclusion, consultation. It requires you to lead a big team and to lead it well. Kevin Rudd, as Prime Minister, struggled to do that, and by the days of 2010, that struggle had resulted in paralysis in the government.
And there was more.
Well, the 2010 election was sabotage. We were in a winning position in that campaign until the sabotage that knocked that campaign very, very solidly. Now, I had to come out, actually it was here in Adelaide is my recollection, and deal with that sabotage of the campaign and get the campaign back up and going.
In a carefully orchestrated media blitz, senior ministers lined up to back her and accused Kevin Rudd of relentless destabilisation from the moment he lost the leadership.
During the election campaign, it was absolutely clear, every Australian remembers that farcical first 2 weeks as Julia Gillard was undermined by leak after leak after leak. From the press club with Laurie Oakes, we had leaks going on.
Kevin talks about stealth. I mean, this has been a covert operation, and he's up there operating the drone 24 hours a day because he never sleeps. He's always manipulating something. I mean, this is a campaign that has been relentless. It's had an impact.
There's no doubt that Kevin has been engaging in undermining of the government for more than a year now.
I think we need to get out of this idea that Kevin is a messiah who will deliver an election back to us. That is just, I think, fanciful.
Kevin Rudd talks about a wave of destabilisation and undermining of him. Really, he should just look in the mirror.
The word was filtering back to Kevin Rudd in Washington, D.C.
I've frankly been shocked and disappointed by the tone and content of the intensely personal attacks which have been lodged against me overnight in Australia. Whatever our differences in politics, I do not believe that these sorts of vicious personal attacks have a place in our national political life.
Before flying out, he urged his supporters not to retaliate. But by late morning, the penny had dropped. They needed to get out there and say something or be totally outmanoeuvred. Manufacturing Minister Kim Carr was the first to adopt the high moral ground.
And the types of campaign stratagems we've seen overnight and this morning are truly appalling. We simply can't have a situation where we are seeking to destroy each other in such personal ways.
I don't think it's good for the Labor brand or for the respect for Labor traditions to be trashing people's reputations.
My simple message to some of my colleagues given statements over the last week to fortnight is that you better be very careful what you say publicly. We should not be seeking to assassinate one another or reflect on the strengths and weaknesses of one another.
These ministers from different factions, along with the Emergency Management Minister, Robert McClelland, have finally stepped out of the shadows as Rudd backers. But the bulk of the ministry is behind Julia Gillard. For the bewildered Australian electorate, get ready for an onslaught of public utterances from both camps in the lead-up to Monday's ballot, especially when Kevin Rudd lands home tomorrow.
I do not believe that Prime Minister Gillard can lead the Australian Labor Party to success in the next election. That is a deep belief.
I'm under no illusions about the degree of political difficulty the government confronts. I'm also under no illusions why we have those political difficulties.
Thank you. Julia Gillard wants to see her predecessor finished off once and for all on Monday. But what's not clear yet is whether Kevin Rudd is prepared to make a second strike down the track.
Political editor Heather Hewitt. The number crunching will be going on until the doors close on Labor caucus on Monday morning. One counted in the Rudd camp is the Minister for Emergency Management, Robert McClelland. I spoke with him a short time ago. Robert McClelland, welcome.
Thank you.
Will you be supporting Kevin Rudd on Monday?
I've encouraged Kevin to run, and if he nominates, I most certainly will be supporting Kevin Rudd.
Why?
Well, I think unquestionably he is the best equipped to win the next election. He has tremendous public support. He's the first Labor leader in 17 years to win from opposition, and I think we have an obligation to put forward our best candidate as leader, and I think Kevin is that person.
So why did you support dumping him last time?
Again, I supported Julia Gillard at the last election, at the last ballot for leadership. I think that was the wrong call. I think events have shown that to be the case.
So you made a mistake?
Well, again, you look at these issues on the basis of the facts that are at hand, but I think the call was the wrong call. I think the election result that followed indicated that. I think the way the Labor Party is travelling from the public perception is an indication of that as well.
What do you say to those who would say that you are bitter at Julia Gillard because she dumped you from the Attorney General's portfolio?
I'm certainly on the record as indicating I was disappointed with that decision, but these events are far more significant than that incident. It is certainly a case where now, as a member of the Parliamentary Labor Party, we have an obligation to supporters to do all we can to win the next election, and I think that is putting forward our best leader.
Kevin Rudd, you're a member of his cabinet. Julia Gillard says that it was chaotic and dysfunctional. That is a fair comment, isn't it?
No, it's not a fair comment. You can only take these issues as you see them, as you deal with them. He was certainly a stickler for policy, for fine detail.
But not the cabinet process.
He certainly made people work hard. I had, again, you can only take people as you find them. I had no difficulty getting through a submission if the submission, the cabinet submission, was properly prepared, had been worked through. I had no detail getting that through. In my area at the time of responsibility of national security, he was particularly constructive, had a keen interest. I had every assistance from his office and from Kevin.
Given a vote for Kevin Rudd on Monday is a vote of no confidence in Julia Gillard, will you resign from Cabinet should Kevin Rudd not win?
Well, again, we'll take these issues as they come. These issues have to be decided. Obviously, I'm not going to preempt any outcome, and to a large extent they will be issues to be decided by the then elected leader, and I obviously accept those as being as necessarily being the case.
The Prime Minister said today that whoever loses this ballot should retire to the backbench, and that should be the end of the matter. Do you support that idea?
Well, again, that's going to be a matter. If Kevin Rudd is expected nominates, that will be a matter for Kevin Rudd. I note in the past undertakings have been given to that effect by those who have sought the leadership of the party. Within months, the situation has changed. So again,
your expectation is we'll see more than one of these if Kevin Rudd gets close on Monday?
Well, again, this is a matter for Kevin.
Isn't that just a recipe for disaster?
Our primary obligation is to get our policies implemented. To do that, we need to win the election. And that is why I'm supporting Kevin Rudd. Clearly, we want to get these issues resolved. We want to get the leadership resolved. There is no question about that. And hopefully we will do that on Monday.
It's a matter for you too. Would you pledge here tonight that you will not support any return attempt by Kevin Rudd should he lose on Monday, that it would be the end of the matter for you and Julia Gillard would get to take the party to the next election?
Look, I'm not going to bind myself insofar as my primary obligation is to advance the policies and the programs of the Labor Party, and to do that we need to be elected, and I will look at the facts as they exist at the time.
And you have no chance of being re-elected under Julia Gillard?
I don't think we have a realistic prospect of being re-elected under Julia Gillard. I think we have been flatlining in the polls. I don't think we have captured the attention or the support of the broader Australian community. And obviously, if we want to win an election, they have to listen to us, they have to trust us, they have to have empathy with us, and more than that, they have to be enthused by our programs.
Robert McClelland, thank you.
That's my pleasure.
And joining me now is one of Julia Gillard's staunch supporters, Health Minister TANYA PLIBERSEK. Welcome.
Hi, Chris.
You've just heard what Robert McClelland had to say. He is one of a number in your caucus now who believes that this party is doomed under Julia Gillard, under all the available evidence. Isn't that correct?
Well, I think doomed is very emotive language. I think we have been having a tough time electorally, but certainly the sort of distraction that we've seen over the last few days doesn't help that. I think we've got an excellent record to talk about, and we've got a clear vision for the future, and I hope that on Monday, if this ballot goes ahead, that there is a decisive victory, and then we can all go back to doing what we went into Parliament to do, which is serve our communities.
But you can't convince the community that that's what you're doing, that you are a good government. You can't even convince, it would appear, 1/3 of your own caucus, and that surely is disastrous.
Well, you're picking numbers out of the air, Chris, so I don't think you can just assume numbers here or there. But the real issue is that we've been talking about ourselves for much too long. I think we need to sort this matter out on Monday. Julia Gillard has said that if she's not successful on Monday, she'll go to the back bench. I think it's very important that we get a clear statement also from Kevin Rudd that if he should not be successful in a ballot on Monday, that he will accept that his caucus colleagues have made a decision and he will work as part of a team to get our message across, get out the fact that we've done phenomenally well coming out of the global financial crisis, get out the fact that we need to keep our economy strong so that we can build a fairer society.
But you've just seen what Robert McClelland had to say, and we've heard what Bruce Hawker had to say last night. It's quite obvious that the Rudd camp believes that if it gets close enough this time, that's just the start. This could go on for months.
Well, I think it's very important that people examine what that would do to the Labor Party
What do you think it would
most
do?
importantly what it would do to good government in this country, our ability to deliver for the people that we care about. We've got this huge agenda for the future. We've just released the Gonski report. We want to engage with the National Disability Insurance Scheme. In my own area, I've got a dental report coming out next week. We want to do better on dental health care.
Certainly. And all that would be
that
trashed, though, wouldn't it? All that would be
people.
trashed by a continuing leadership crisis in the Labor Party, and that's what's being promised.
There must not be a continuing leadership crisis. We must sort this out on Monday. That must be the end of it, because our record is not getting out, our successes are not making an impact on people, and more importantly, our plans for the future are being lost in these internal discussions. And Labor Party supporters, Labor Party members, members of the Labor movement need to hear us talking about what we're going to do,
Members of the Labor movement would
for
be
the
in
future.
despair at the moment when they would think that this generation of Labor politicians may well be ending the long history of the Labor Party.
Well, I think that there'd be very strong support for us sorting this out on Monday and then getting on with governing.
Was Kevin Rudd as damaging and destructive and dysfunctional as everyone now says? And if so, why didn't you say so at the time?
I'm not going to talk about things that have happened. I, in fact, wasn't in Cabinet in the time that you're talking about. I was
You were
in the
a closer observer than
outer
anyone else.
ministry. No, and I'm not going to pass judgment on people. I have plenty of my own personal failings, and what I do every day is get up and go to work and do the best job I can for the people that I care about, that I want to serve. And I think the majority of my colleagues feel that way.
A number of Cabinet ministers today, and Prime Minister on down, saying that this is the case. Doesn't that show that as a Cabinet they were completely supine? They didn't actually speak up when things were going wrong.
Well, I think what the Prime Minister said very clearly today is that she worked her guts out to try and fix things that she believed needed fixing, and she did it inside the Cabinet processes, which is completely appropriate. In fact, I don't think this sort of public bloodletting does any of us any good. I think it overshadows our great achievements, and it overshadows our plans for the future, and really that's what people want to hear about.
With everything that we've heard, though, over the last little while, and we're going to hear a lot more over the course of the weekend as people try to bludgeon support one way or the other in caucus, how can you possibly unite after this and convince the people that you have united?
Well, I am confident that we can. You know, we just heard from Robert McClelland, who has, you know, said in his interview that he takes a different position from me. I like and respect Robert, and I will have no trouble working with him on Monday afternoon, no matter what the outcome of this is. And I truly believe that the vast majority of my colleagues want what's best for the Australian people, and what's best for the Australian people is that we are able to complete the work that we have done.
Very briefly, could you work in a Kevin Rudd cabinet?
I've worked with Kevin before, I've served him loyally, but I must say I believe that Julia Gillard delivered the minerals resources rent tax, a price on carbon. We've now got education reform, disability insurance scheme. She has delivered complex and difficult reform in a very extraordinarily difficult parliamentary environment.
Tanya PLIBERSEK, we'll have to leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
Well, the future of the Gillard government doesn't just rest in the hands of the 103 members of the Labor caucus. It's also held together with the support of Greens and Independents. One is the member for New England, Tony Windsor, and I spoke with him earlier. Tony Windsor, what do you make of what you're seeing from the Labor Party at the moment?
I think it was always something was going to happen next week, and obviously couldn't have been allowed to have been dragged on and dragged on. It has damaged the government, there's no doubt about that, and depending on the outcome, there could be more damage. I think what we'll see is the Prime Minister that's there now will be the Prime Minister next week.
Is it time that we went back to the polls? Is it time for the Australian people to pick a new Prime Minister?
Well, I don't think so, but others may, and people will make their own lunch in relation to a lot of this too. There could be certain things happening. If there's a change of leader, for instance, that may well lead to a poll. There's a whole range of things that can happen in a hung parliament. I would rather see, if at all possible, some of these bigger ticket, longer term issues addressed, and to do that there needs to be a bit more time in this parliament.
Would you support the idea of having a debate on no confidence, even if you don't support the actual motion itself?
Well, I'd want to see the reasons that it's put up. If there's some corruption or maladministration, obviously those issues need to be fleshed out.
Is this a good administration?
Well, in the sense that the Parliament is working. I'm a member of the Parliament, and the Parliament has been working very effectively. I wouldn't say there's been any maladministration in the Parliament. If there's some form of corruption out there that we don't know about, well, obviously that can be brought before the Parliament in some sort of no confidence motion. But I'll just play each day as it comes, and I think by Wednesday most of the dust will have settled.
Given that all the things you say are true, that the Parliament is functioning and that the economy is in good shape, why is it then, does it bemuse you that we're seeing the second vote on Prime Ministership in 20 months?
Yes, it does, and I think I'd reflect most of the views of most Australians. I think people are pretty frustrated with it. But you can't, whether it's a minority parliament or a normal majority parliament, you can't thwart the ambitions of people in a democracy. So it happens. It's just that in this very delicately balanced parliament, there's a lot more focus on what it actually means in terms of the longevity of the current government.
Tony Windsor, thank you.
Okay, thanks, Chris.